Okay guys, welcome back to our sixth episode in our Angry Zombie series. Today we are going to be having a look at we're going to be having a look at how we can fix our camera, because at the moment when you launch our skulls and you hit what's it called, the objects, you can see that our camera just stays on our first skull. So if we launch our project and we watch our skull move from wherever, if it hits it dodges, or if it hits the wall it bounces back, and if it hits these scene objects then it just stays there. So now that we've launched this skull, we now want to go and delete the skull and refocus the camera onto this new skull that has appeared in our scene. So that's what we're going to be working on today. In the first few episodes we focused on creating the game, and then we also added in our objects and we made our slingshot from scratch. And then in the previous episode we focused on creating our individual levels. So these things over here, these are our levels. Then we also have a second level that looks like that. So that's what we did in the last episode. So if you missed that, go ahead and watch the previous episode. But for this episode, in today's episode, we're going to be focusing on destroying our skull, and then also relocating our camera focus onto the new skull that's been spawned into our slingshot. So let's go and do that. So let's jump into our project. I have opened it again just to save us some time. So first thing, let's do this. So if we go into our script in our skull, where is it? Where do we want to do this? Might want to do this in our game manager, I think. Let's see. So explode, we don't want to do that. That's for our TNT. In our scene, no, we don't do that. Let's go ahead and probably do in our game manager. Or what we could do is we could go and create an entirely new script and do it in there. Let's have a look and see. So first of all, let's see game manager. Okay, so that's got the game manager script on it. Our camera, does that have a camera script? Yeah, it does. So let's see, we might have to do it in our camera script. So okay, so we'll just do it in our camera script, because we do want to focus the camera on our new skull, and we're already finding our skull with the tag on it. So we'll do that in here. So first of all, let us go and say let's bring back our update function. And we're going to use this to figure out when our skull is not moving. So for that, we first of all need to make sure our skull has our tag of skull on it, which it does, so that's fine. So let us go in our update function, let's go and say, well, seeing as we're already fetching the target and assigning the target to our skull, we've already got that. So let's go and say debug.log target dot transform dot, or what is it, target dot game object, maybe target dot target I get the velocity over target dot transform, target dot transform dot velocity. Okay, let's set this up. So let's see, here's our Google Unity get velocity of transform. Maybe that's target dot get component. Let's see, we want to get the rigid body rigid body 2D, whatever that is. Rigid body 2D, that one. Dot velocity. So that hopefully that will print out our velocity. So we'll save that and jump back into our game, and we can play it. And hopefully now we'll see that whenever we launch it, or whenever we play the game and we're in the game scene, our velocity is going to be printed. So as soon as we launch it, it increases. So that's fine. And whenever it is stationary, it's at 0. So that's going to help. So let us go and say in our update, here we can just create a variable and say variable skull velocity is equal to this. Just like that. And then in the update function we can say or actually we will have to create another function for this, and let's call this destroy, or let's go make it private void destroy skull. And then this is where we want to destroy our skull. And then we're also going to want to go and focus the camera on the new skull. So that's what we're going to do in this function. But now we need to figure out a way to destroy the skull when the velocity is 0, but only after the skull has been launched. So as you can see, if we play this and if we play the game, our velocity at the start is 0, and if we just put if we just use an if statement and said if the velocity is less than 0 or equal to 0, then destroy it would destroy straight away, which is not what we want. So let us go and say where do we launch our skull? So let's see, load new level now. Okay, so we need to open our slingshot. That's in there. So in here we need to add in another boolean and see if that will work. So let's see. Have we got any booleans? No, yeah we do. So let's go and say boolean, or we'll make this public. Public boolean is launched. And then whenever we launch our skull, we want to change that to true. So at the moment, is launched is equal to false. We'll set it equal to false so that the skull is not launched. And then wherever we launch our skull, which is on mouse up, which we need to go in here, and after we shoot our skull, we need to change that to true. So we can do that probably let's do that over here in our shoot function. So just before we create the new skull, we are going to go and say what do we call it? We called it is launched. So let's go is launched is equal to true. So that's fine. And then in our camera follow script, we need to go ahead and get this is launched value. So to do that, we need to first of all check if we can do this. So our slingshot is always on in the game scene, so that's good. So okay, so now we can so we can just drag and drop in these our slingshot slingshot game object. So let's go and say serialize field game object, or let's call it game object. We'll call it a slingshot, and then we also want to create we want to get the slingshot script off of that. So let's say can't type today. Slingshot. We will call the slingshot script. Okay, perfect. And then in our start, we need to bring back our start method. So let's go and write the start. And then in here, let's go and say, okay, well we won't get that in inspector. We'll do that in our start method. So let's take that out and put that in here. And then let's go ahead and make sure that our slingshot has a tag on it, so that we can find it using the tag. So our tag doesn't have, well, slingshot doesn't have a tag, but we can go ahead and add one. So if we create a new slingshot tag, just like that, and then go back onto our slingshot game object, we'll add in that tag, and then we'll just go and apply that, so that if we reuse it, it will still have the slingshot tag on it. So let us go back into the script and say slingshot is equal to get component, what type is it? Game object. No, so we need to find it, sorry. So let's go and say find object, or you say game object. Okay, why can't I type? Game object dot find. No, okay, so how did we do this? Let's see, where do we do that? Okay, so it needs to be a capital game object. So let's get rid of this. Game object dot find object with tag, and then we want to make that tag string. So let's go and say thing shot tag like that, and then we'll put that in there, but we need to change this to slingshot. So we'll find the game object with the tag of slingshot, and we'll assign that to our slingshot. And then what we want to do is we want to use our slingshot game object to get the slingshot script off of that. So to do that, let's go and say slingshot script is equal to our slingshot dot get component, and then we want to get the slingshot script off of it, just like this. So now that will allow us to use our what do we call it? Is launched. So now we can use this in the following way. So in our update, we want to say if slingshot script dot is launched. Let's go and print this out and see. Debug dot log. What do we call it? Skull velocity. Skull velocity. So now we should only get a velocity printed out in our inspector whenever we launch our skull. So hopefully that works. So let's go ahead and play our game and see if that works. So if we play this, wait for it to build. Okay, so now we don't get anything printed out, so that's good. So if we go ahead and launch our skull, we now get our velocity printed out, so that's perfect. And as soon as it stops, okay, as soon as our velocity is equal to 0, we need to go and set our isLaunch to 0. I mean, not to 0, to false again. So if slingshot is launched, print out the velocity, so we don't want to do that. That was just a check. So now let's see how we want to, if the slingshot is launched and velocity is equal to 0. So, and skull velocity, that's what it's called. Skull velocity is less than or equal to 0. Cannot be applied to operands of type vector2 and int. Okay. Okay, let's see. In Google, we'll go to Google and say actually, can you just use the x and y values of that? Because it's printing out 2 values, so let's see what we got. So if we scroll, okay, that's going to take forever. Let's just use the scroll bar. So let's go and say velocity dot x is equal to 0. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so we'll leave that for now. So if that is true, let's go and just call our destroy skull method, and then just to test to see if this works, let's go and say debug.log skull destroyed, and then let's say debug.log new camera focus, just to check and see if things are working the way we wanted to. So if we go back to our project and play this again, we should now see that when we launch our skull, nothing gets printed out until our skull is velocity x, or our x velocity is set to 0. Then we go ahead and call our destroy skull. So that's working nicely. Let's see, so when did that get called? Alright, so that's working nicely, but let's do this in a different way. Let's go and say invoke, and then name of destroy skull. Okay, why is that not working? So let's see. Okay, so we don't need invoke name of. Clearly I can't type today, so let's see, invoke name of destroy skull. Okay, so we need a bracket over there. Okay, cool. So invoke the name. So this is now gonna, whenever our skull is launched, is set to true, and the skull velocity is set, or is less than or equal to 0, then we're going to go ahead and call our destroy method, which is this one, after 3 seconds. So let's see if that works. So if we hop back into Unity, let us play our game, and now if we launch our skull and hit something as soon as it is set to 0, after 3 seconds it now prints out our function. Okay, that's working nicely. So then now what we can do, instead of printing all of this stuff out, we can go and destroy our skull. So let us destroy Okay, but now we need to well, let's just destroy our target and see. Destroy target and see what that does. Hopefully it doesn't destroy both of our skulls. It shouldn't, because only one skull is set to the target. So if we destroy this, we can see as soon as we launch our skull, our new skull is spawned, and then this one should be destroyed, but it's not. So well, actually maybe it is. So if we go into our slingshot, I think that's what we're working in. No, so we're in our camera, so let's go to our main camera, and you can't actually see. Okay, first of all, let's see what this is. Can't destroy transform component of skull. If you do want to destroy count, please just call destroy on the game object instead. Okay, so we need to go and say target dot game object. So hopefully that will get rid of the skull out of the scene, because you can't destroy a transform, instead you have to destroy the game object component of the transform. So let's go and play our game and see. So if we launch our skull now, we'll just launch it somewhere close by, and then after 3 seconds it destroys that, so that's perfect, and we can see that our new skull is still in the scene in our slingshot, so that's perfect. So let's see what's happening here. Missing reference, so that's fine. So now as soon as we have destroyed our target object, which is the skull, we need to go and make the focus, our target focus, the new skull. So to do that, should be quite simple. All we have to do is make sure that our new skull has a tag on it. But let's see, so skull, if we open the prefab, our skull has the tag skull on it. So we should be able to just go and copy this and put this over here. So whenever we destroy our target, we then go and reassign our target to be the game object that has a skull tag on it. So if we let's go ahead and play this and see if that works. Hopefully it does. So let's go ahead and launch our skull. So as soon as our skull stops, it gets destroyed after 3 seconds. And then okay, so that's not working. Object reference has been destroyed, but you're still trying. Let's see, the object of type transform has been destroyed, but you are still trying to access it. Your script should either check if it's null or should not destroy the object. Okay, so that is happening in our camera follow script on line 39. So where's that? 39. So that's over here. Okay, so that's in here. Let's say if transform, or not transform, so if target, then we can go ahead and do this. Otherwise, do not do this. So let's copy, or let's cut it and paste that in there. Actually, we'll get rid of the var and create that up here. So we'll say float. What do we call it? Skull velocity. Just like that, and then we'll create this as a vector 2, because that's what it is. So our error should disappear now, so that's fine. So let's go ahead and play our game again and see if we get any errors. So everything should be fine now, hopefully. So if we play our game and launch our skull, destroy one of our zombies, and destroy our skull after 3 seconds. Okay, so something else is happening now. So now we're getting even more errors. So let's see, the object of type transform has been destroyed, but you're still trying to access it. Your script should either check. Okay, so camera follow at line 54. That is over here. Okay. So we'll just put that check in again. So we'll go and say if target. Let's go ahead and do that. And we can do the same over here, just to make things a little bit simple and less messy. We can go, did we save that? We did. Okay, so let's play our game again. Hopefully we get no errors. So if we launch our skull, collides with our zombie, and after 3 seconds it should disappear, which it does, which is fine. But now we have another error, line 53. So that's this line. And what's our error? Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Camera follows it, destroys skull. Okay. Okay, so let's go and say if target is equal to null, then we want to do this. Did I save that? Okay, so let's see if this works now. So that will only try and assign a game object to our target if our target is null. So destroy our zombie, our skull gets destroyed. We still have a problem with line 54. So let's see what's happening. So null reference, object reference not set to an instance of an object. Camera follow dot destroy skull at line 54. Okay, just to test this, I'm just going to put this as serialized field. Let's go serialized field so we can see in our game if it is actually being assigned or not. So if we play it and we select our camera script or our camera object, we can now see a skull transform in our target object in our inspector. Let's go ahead and launch our skull. So as soon as this gets destroyed, that should so that's now missing. So now let's see, we can try and reset that. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and destroy this, and we'll just comment that out first, and then we will see if we get any errors. We shouldn't do, because we're not actually doing anything yet. So let's go ahead and launch our skull. So actually we probably will get errors now, just because our camera has nothing to focus on. So camera follow line 28, which is here. So what does this say? Null reference exception, object reference not set to an instance of an object. Okay. So we need to try and figure out how to reassign our camera to the new skull somehow, because clearly the idea that I had was not working. So we might have to, let us go to Google and try and look it up. So let's see, Unity destroy object and reassign. Destroy object and what can we say? Unity destroy object and hold on, let's see. Maybe we need to try and look up the error and see how to fix it. So Well, first of all, let's go ahead and just play the game quick and see. Maybe there's something wrong with our skull that's been cloned. So our skull that's been cloned has a tag of skull, which is fine. So if we go and destroy the skull by slinging it, the new one is destroyed, which is why that is the problem, I think. So it's not supposed to destroy both of them. So let's see. Maybe where we spawning? So we're spawning a new skull whenever after we shoot. Okay, so that's not what we want. So we need to go ahead and change that and only create the skull after we have destroyed the first one. So we can create a skull from our camera follow script. So after we destroy the skull, let's go ahead and say focus. Okay, so before we focus, let's go ahead and create a new skull. To do that, we need to get access to our slingshot, which we already have. So let's go and say slingshot script dot create skull. So we need to change this to to public, like that. So that's going to give us access to it through our camera follow script. So that is fine now. So after we destroy that, okay, that's fine, and then we want to focus this. So let's go and say we'll bring this back, uncomment that, and see if that works now. So let us go back and play our game, and hopefully now that we are no longer destroying both skulls, we can reassign the position of our camera to our new skull. So skull 1 is destroyed and our new skull is still not spawned. So let's see, object reference, main camera, target is missing. Okay, line 57, which is this one. What does it say? Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Okay. Okay, so that is hard. Let's see, destroy that. So if we don't need to wait 2 seconds, let's just go ahead and create the new skull, just like that. Add in our brackets so we can call that. So let's go and see, let's play this, and hopefully now we get something assigned into our target field here. So if we wait for this to load and play it again, we have our original skull, which is there. Let's go and launch this, make it destroyed, and then this should become missing. Okay, so it is kind of working, but we don't want this to carry on spawning new skulls, otherwise, as you saw, it just spawns many. So let us go into our slingshot script and say, yeah, actually no, let's do this in our camera follow, and let's say okay, so we're destroying the skull in here, so yeah, we can do this here. So let's go and say boolean skull exists is equal to true, and then as soon as we destroy it, which happens over here, so let's go ahead and set this to skull exists equals false, which is fine, and then let's say if skull exists, so, and rather if the skull doesn't exist, we want to go ahead and create a new skull. And then as soon as we create a skull, we want to go and say skull exists is equal to true again. That way we should only spawn one skull. So we'll play our game. Hopefully now we can launch our skull, which is fine, and then destroy it, and then spawn a new skull. Okay, so we're still getting multiple skulls spawned, which is weird. So let's see how we can fix this. So so if the target exists, then we need to destroy the target's game object and set skull exists to false, because it will no longer be a skull. And then, so if the skull doesn't exist, then we need to create a skull. What happens if we put this on top? Maybe that probably won't make a difference, but let's go ahead and see. So we launch our skull, and then it gets destroyed after a few seconds, and then new skulls keep spawning. Okay, so that doesn't work. So maybe it's something to do in our slingshot. So where's create skull is over here. Okay, so create skull instantiate. Okay, so maybe we need to put the check in here. Let's do that. So let's move the boolean, which is this one. We'll cut that out and we'll pop that into our slingshot. So public boolean, change this to public so we can access it. Public skull exists equal to true, and let's say if skull exists, or rather if the skull doesn't exist, we can go ahead and do what we wanted to do when we spawn a new skull. So we'll save that, go back to our camera follow script, and in here we can destroy our skull, and then after that we want to say what is it called? What's it called? Slingshot script dot skull exists is equal to false, and then let us just create another skull over here like that. So the check of is if the skull exists should happen in our slingshot script. So let's play our game again. Hopefully we have better luck this time. So let's play the game, and let's see. So object reference not set to an instance of an object, line 29. What's that? Line 29 is over here. Right, one. So there's nothing is being set at the moment. Okay. Oh, that's because our skull is not being spawned, so we need to change that. Yeah, so we have no skull. We no longer have a skull being instantiated here, so if the skull doesn't exist, so if it's equal to false, so we'll change that to false because we need to instantiate it. And then create skull, we need to set reset strips. In here, let's go and say skull exists is equal to true. So that should allow us to spawn our skull as soon as we launch the game. So let us play this. Zoom out a bit. Okay, so play it now. Things should work. Still not. Still line 29. Interesting. Camera follow line 29. Okay, so this is not working, so we're no longer assigning something to our target, so let's see. And that is because it's not being spawned. So in our slingshot, let's say skull exists is equal to false. It's a bit weird, I don't understand why this doesn't work, but we'll figure it out. So that works, and then if we launch it, and if this works, this is gonna be really, really weird. Okay, so we're back to where we started. So if the skull exists, which it doesn't, then at the start it needs to create the skull. That makes no sense because that's working and it shouldn't be. Unless we're doing something in here. So if we'll take this away quick because we'll deal with that somewhere else. And then in here we can say, actually let's just go and say this and play our game and see what happens, because this is confusing because this shouldn't be working but it is. So if we launch our skull, then it obviously gets destroyed after a few seconds. Okay, so that's what we want to happen, but now you can see that it's spawning our skulls over and over and over again, which is not what we want. So let's go and say if slingshot script dot skull exists. So if it doesn't exist, then we need to create a skull. So let's see. So play a game, and then we get our skull launched, or our skull spawned, or instantiated, whatever you want to use, and then it just gets destroyed after a few seconds. Okay, so clearly. Okay, so if we put in this if statement, it doesn't work, but if we take it out, it works how we want it to work, except for the fact that it spawns many over and over and over again. So as you can see now that if we launch our skull, as soon as it gets destroyed, the camera position, or our first skull gets destroyed and our camera position relocates to our second skull. But because we are spawning so many skulls, it doesn't really know which one to focus on, so we need to try and fix that. So let's see. So we are destroying the skull after the collision, and then we are relocating the camera. So the only thing left we need to do is figure out how to stop spawning so many different. How to stop spawning so many different skulls. So let's try and figure this out. So let's see. In our create skull function, let's see if the skull exists. So if skull exists is equal to true. Which shouldn't be the case. It should be if the skull doesn't exist, then spawn a new one. But that's not what it's doing. So let's see if this works. So we'll launch the skull, destroy it after 3 seconds. So that's fine. Actually, that actually worked, but it didn't relocate the camera. So we can see our skull actually did destroy it. So we launched our skull, and then our skull gets destroyed. Okay, yeah, no, it didn't work because we no longer have a new skull. So let's see. So if we set this to true, then or maybe we can try this a different way, and we can probably only do this if the count of skulls in the scene is less than 1. So yeah, let's try that. So instead of creating a boolean and saying there is a skull that exists in the scene, let's go ahead and see if there, or see whenever there's less than 1 skull in the scene. So to do that, let's try and see. To do that, let's go into our create skull here and say, instead of if skull exists, let's see, okay, so we do have a skull rigid body, and we do have a skull prefab. So let's create a public skull count. Do this an int, because it's going to be a whole number. And then in our start, well, whenever we create a skull, let's go and say, we can get rid of that because we'll try something new. So get rid of this. So let's say, we can also get rid of that. Let's get rid of the boolean up here, skull exists. We no longer need that. So in our create skull, let's go and put this back. And then here we want to say skull count is equal to 1. So we create a skull, and that's going to be equal to 1. And then whenever we destroy the skull, we're going to set it back to 0. So then let's say if skull, spell properly, skull count is equal to 0. Let's go ahead and do all of this. So we'll put that inside the if statement. And then we need to go back into our camera follow script, and in our destroy skull here, we want to say, whenever we destroy the skull, let's go and say slingshot script dot skull count. Skull count is equal to 0, and then we can go ahead and create a new skull. So let's see if that works. Did we save everything? We did. So if we play our game, hopefully this works better. So let's see, we can launch our skull. That works, and then it should get destroyed. Okay, but it still is printing out or still instantiating so many skulls, so I don't really know why. Okay, we need to try and figure that out. Let's look up Unity call method once from update. So it's instantiating so many because we keep calling it, because we're doing an update method, and that is because the update method is called every frame. But by adding a boolean to it, it should only do it once. How can I call a function once from the update function? Okay, so update if one time activate one time equals true. So yeah, that's right. Which is what I did with the skull exists, but clearly not. So let's try and do this another way. Well, let's make a boolean in here. So let's say if, just to test, let's just say boolean one time equals false. Oh, I'll just leave it like that for now, and then we'll say if one time is true, create a skull, and then we're going to say one time is is equal to false, like that, and then after that, okay, so first of all let's go and say, let's do this. So hopefully that will allow us to only spawn one skull. Then if it does, then we won't be able to spawn another skull when we launch the second one that's been spawned. So let's go and launch that. So skull gets destroyed and our new skull doesn't get spawned. Okay, so that's a problem we try and figure out. So we can delete that because that didn't make a difference, it just made it worse. So let's see. So things are working the way we wanted them to work, other than the fact that we are spawning like 1,000 different skulls. So our skull gets launched, it then gets destroyed eventually, and then spawns a new one, and then our camera refocuses on the new skull. And then we can obviously launch our new skull, but because there are so many skulls, it's not working how we wanted it to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do some research on how to fix that. So I will first of all go ahead and commit this to GitHub. Whenever this decides to load. Anyway, when that loads up, I will go ahead and commit that to GitHub, just because it's taking a while. But for now, if you enjoyed this episode, thank you for watching it, and please do give it a like. I will try and figure out how to fix that issue of so many different skulls being spawned, and I will fix it in episode 7. And if we get that done, episode 7 should be focusing on creating like UI and adding some scores and some lives to it. So we're going to limit the lives to 3 skulls each for each level. So that is going to be episode 7. So if you're enjoying the series, please do go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like the videos, and I will see you in the next episode. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, like I said, I'll see you in the next episode. So thank you and goodbye.
I'm all the sins that you can't confess. I'm just your ghost if we're